Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel again. It's been a long time, Apana. Welcome back to our YouTube. So today we're going to talk about a very sensitive topic. As you've heard all around, people have been killing themselves because of love triangles. Yeah. Kakamega, watu wanawana ugali, chai, I don't know. Okay, it's funny, but
it's serious.
It's very serious and very heartbreaking. So today, the question we're going to answer is actually the generation that we're raising currently a weak generation. What do you think? Yeah, you can also interact with us through the comment section. What do you think? Yeah, thank you.
And before we begin, I'd like to give a disclaimer. Whatever we discuss here might be quite sensitive. It might be triggering. So if you're not mentally ready, just... it's a disclaimer for a reason, because whatever we discuss may not be so general. It may touch on some triggering points. It may remind you of something that would, be emotionally weighing. So just be aware of that. Yeah. So I think I can start with my first point. The question was, is the current generation mentally weak? My opinion is that they're not. They're not necessarily mentally weak. It is the environment that they're being raised in. It's the environment they're interacting with that is rather different. I'll give an example. Our parents raised us in a very conservative society. You don't know the ills. You don't know how bad it can get. You also raised in a way that you don't know whether to talk about if someone is offending you, if someone is stepping on your space or, in your personality or something like that. So you grow up and now these things just start hitting you one by one. So it's not necessarily the people that are weak. I think it's the society that we live in. That was my first point.
Personally, I think, the generation is weak. And I tend to agree with Christobel Kidogo when he says the environment. The environment makes the generation weak in the sense that nowadays people are handling a lot of pressures, be it pressures from friends, social media. Social media and peer pressure also. Like you want to try something someone else is doing and yet you're not capable to get there. So such kind of pressure really gets into them. And another thing I may say, also as they're undergoing this kind of pressures, they lack someone to talk to, a confidant. Talks between themselves, they lack someone to talk to them or a confidant, let me say. Maybe they feel maybe unaenda kuwasema somewhere, or generally they like keeping stuff to themselves in a build up pole in the sense that someone doesn't know it's really affecting them. So until it blows up, to collect, kumbe so and so is suffering. You see, yeah.
I'd like to comment a bit on what you've said about social media and peer pressure. I think this is a conversation we need to have with our parents to judge if they had peer pressure, because I'm sure peer pressure hasn't started right now. Peer pressure must have started somewhere. For us to even be taught about it in school, it must have started somewhere. So my question is it 2 times worse because there's social media? And the way we handle social media, does it dictate how emotionally weak we become? For instance, Velma, have you ever had an emotional breakdown, or you're just not feeling so confident in yourself because of something you saw on social media?
Okay, that one I'd answer in this perspective. I think if Benten would be here, would have answered it well. We all have different personalities. For me, it wouldn't affect me. I'll just see it, then I was like, okay, it's her life, I go on. But there are some people, it really gets into them and affects them so badly. So to answer that question, I'd say it's more of personality.
And there was an episode where Benta addressed that she left social media for her reasons, because she felt like, at first alikuwa najiconsole like we all do. We are like, okay. And first of all, before I discredit social media, I'd like to appreciate that it's giving us a forum to express ourselves. It's giving us ways to influence and make income. So social media in itself is not a bad thing. It's just how we handle it. there's so much bullying in there. There's so much bullying is another point that I'm going to address. But from Benta's response was that she left because she realized later on that as much as she was just going through, just scrolling, you just scroll, just scrolling, I'm just looking at photos. But later on, they akaanza to realize, hiya, these things are affecting me. Even if you may not realize
Plus, at times it might affect you, and most people on social media are living a lie. People are living a lie, and you get affected with something rather than, hey, my friend has really made it in life. Kumbe, she's struggling more than you are. But because of social media, it's given you pressure. Pressure yenye haiko. And one thing I'd like to ask you, Christopher. Yes. So, what do you think? You've said a point that our parents used to undergo such kind of things.
No, it's a question that I have.
Yeah, you've said something. It's a question, right? Of course, they had their own pressures.
What kind of pressure, though? Marriage? What?
Probably doesn't matter.
We should ask our parents.
Yeah, they should. Of course, it's life. So challenges are meant to be there. So, but how they used to handle it in a good way as compared to us currently,
the way we are handling
it.
Okay, and that's why I say I like to put things in perspective. Take for instance myself and say my parents, where they started off at a relatively better.
Can I just add some little thing before we proceed on? Kitambo also. Okay, let us diverge kidogo. In marriage, you see, if you go there, face trials, a lot of troubles, watakwambia sit there. But currently, even a very minor thing, your parent will tell you, like, I'm still here just in case of anything, but still come back home.
Oh, the marriage aspect. The marriage aspect has evolved, and maybe that's why we are seeing more divorce cases right now than before, because people are having the courage to walk out. But also, like, very many things have changed to warrant that. So let me go back to your initial question, the one you asked me if our parents were handling it better than we do. I'd say they had it easy. Like, okay, and like I don't know if I'm sounding entitled,
like right now,
but they had it easy.
If you'd ask your mother, have you ever undergone a mental breakdown? What is it? What is that?
What a mental breakdown. Personally, I've had several in my life, and they usually happen at peak. Like, they happen when I'm really stressed about something, or something really major is coming up. I'll give an instance. I had an actual mental breakdown in high school, in Form 4. A breakdown that involved crying, but then I was crying while laughing. And nowadays I think about it and I'm like, the people who saw me must have really freaked out, because they were wondering, udem anacheka na analia. It's like something just had snapped in my head, and I had to be told to go sleep. Ushaipewa dawa ni kulala, go sleep for like several hours. And at that point I realized that I was exerting myself too much, and I was having way too much pressure to perform because of where I was at. Like, hey, should I nimelipiwa this long? I need to excel. But I think I've digressed. Back to what you asked, if our parents were handling it better, I had said my answer is that they started better off. You're starting life, ushagawiwa shamba. You started life, the economy is favorable. You're buying mkate at 10 bob. Life was favorable at that time.
Getting that 10 bob was a problem. Think about it in that perspective.
It was a problem. But now, okay, fine. Did they have an income to support that 10 bob? Say, if you're employed, would you afford that 10 bob?
Yeah.
Saizi, we are dealing with things like unemployment. Sai, ukiangalia the percentage of people who are not employed right now versus our parents' time, there's a very sharp contrast. And you see, even for someone who's unemployed and you have somewhere to fall back on, you have land somewhere, you have where you're going to get food, are you really going to be that stressed out as compared to someone who is in no man's land, ama shamba la mawe Nairobi, and they really don't have anything? They really don't have anything. Such a person is more prone to those snaps. Yeah. Have I answered your question?
Kinda, but
I'll
get clarity from my mom.
Yeah, maybe we need to ask our parents if they experienced peer pressure.
How they deal with it.
And how they dealt with it. Maybe we are dealing with it wrong.
Because currently you see people are killing themselves too much. Yeah, I think at another point I had, I think the things we get exposed to also. You see, like the story that happened in Kiambu, that guy
The guy who
actually-
killed the parents.
Yes. What did he say? He's been watching a movie. I don't know what kind of movie. And I tend to think some of these things we watch, subconsciously, maybe they might expose us to some things that we don't know. So we end up doing something, but in this sense, that something was influenced with what we've been continuously been exposed to. Yeah.
I think I just I'm trying to familiarize myself with that point because me I was super mad at this guy. What do you mean you killed your parents and blamed it on a TV show? I really didn't.
And also
really didn't sit well with
when
me.
I talk about exposure, I talk about movies and the things we watch on technology actually. Maybe YouTube, social media, the movies, and maybe for instance, I've watched something to do with killings. Then I go take my hard drugs. Okay. The hard drugs may act as a stimulant, as a catalyst in this case. It inaweza nichocha so that I can do such kind of a thing. And which I tend to think it might happen. It might have happened to that guy. Things like those. Yeah. So as much as we can run away to the things we've been exposed to, as much as they give us education and some sort of exposure, there's a way they ruin us subconsciously.
Can I digress kidogo and comment on that? I'd like to say, if the guy was actually affected by whatever he watched, then I think at the point of trial, this guy would have been remorseful. He was not remorseful. So I think that was just a deep-seated mental issue. It wasn't necessarily his exposure. Hata kama, unajua, Velma, it's like you do things under the influence, yeah? When you sober up, you're going to be sorry for what you did. So at that point, no, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was saying his parents, they weren't, whatever. Not even wanted to kill his sisters. His sisters were not there. He wasn't remorseful at all. So I'd like to disagree on exposure. We get exposed to a lot of things,
but to some degree it contributes.
To some degree, but we're not going to entirely blame it.
We're not going to entirely to blame it. But let me tell you something. Right now, where you were telling me recently. In your mind, you know how to operate a plane, right? An aeroplane. In your mind.
Not a plane. I think it was do an operation, a medical operation. Because I've watched Grey's Anatomy.
Same way. Yes, I might have wanted maybe to kill someone. Okay, God forbid. But I just watched maybe the way a gun is fixed.
Or the seed is planted.
And for instance, I get a gun there. Right now from the movie, I just start figuring out this the way it was done.
How it does.
So to some degree, to some extent, I'm not saying 100%, but it contributes.
It does. And should we be using it as a reason? That's my concern. Fine, you've been exposed to something. Should it be the reason why you do things? Or do we need to take responsibility?
That's why I'd say it's a weak generation.
Ametetea point yake hapo. Nice one. Okay, I'd like to bring another point. Since we are talking about suicide, I'd like to go a bit personal on this one, and where this is not easy. Okay, so on the point about mental strength or lack thereof, weakness, I'd like to be a bit vulnerable and speak of two instances in my life that I think can shed light on the issue. First of all, I've had friends. I have lost a friend through suicide, and I've had a friend who's been suicidal. So I get why they, the point they get to, and sometimes I feel like people who talk about people who are suicidal or people who have mental health issues, they fail to understand what happens to this person. They figure your tipping point, what really happens. And I'd like to say, from experience, it's usually a tipping point. Sometimes you may never even see the signs that this person is going through a hard time. Sometimes, I think Velma and Deli mentioned that social media, it just masks everything. You think everything is all glorious, someone is having a good time, is having the time of their lives, but really deep down you don't know what's happening. So it's usually a tipping point. And sometimes as the person who's suicidal, you don't see that tipping point coming.
You've been putting in so much.
Yeah, and that's something else we've come to understand, that regardless of how much you're going through, regardless of how much you're being there for someone who's having a hard time, at times it's good. Think about yourself. Think about what it's doing to your brain. At the end of the day, when you're in that gutter and you have no one to, pull you out, it's kind of difficult. I'll also give another story. Okay, I don't know how this one is gonna be. Yeah. It's making me nervous. Okay. When I say talking about experience, okay. I've been suicidal. I don't know if I've told you this story before.
Probably might have told me.
Yeah. I have been suicidal, although it happened when I was quite young. So sometimes I usually console myself that, I was young, I didn't know better. So I think I was in class 5. That's around class. Around how many years old?
Very many years ago.
That's very many years ago. But at that time, and then now I think I can support her point on what you're exposed to. Because if I didn't even know what suicide is, I wouldn't have thought about it. So at that time, I think, you're young. I think you're starting to realize things for yourself. You're starting to feel like maybe people are in your way. Ama watu wanakusindilia chini. People are in your business. So at that time, I thought like, suicide is an option. And you'd think like, let me just do it so that nitole watu wengine stress. That's another thing that people who are suicidal think about that people don't really know. Like when you had someone committed suicide, most of the comments are usually around, why were they that selfish? They do think about the people they left behind. They are embarrassing their family. But at that point, most people are usually thinking, I'll be better off if I'm not in the picture. Like,
maybe I'm the one who's stressing
maybe I'm the one who's stressing out people. So at that time, I would say maybe I wasn't, like later on in life, maybe I've gotten mentally stronger. Like that time, by then I think I just had an argument with someone and I felt so bad and I cried and I was like, I don't need to be doing this. And I remember I had read a storybook. The innocent storybooks we used to read as kids. And there's this chick who tried to commit suicide by drinking pills. So they had to go and pump her stomach in the hospital. There was such a storybook, I don't remember the name. So that's where I got the idea from. But sometimes I thank God that I don't like tablets. Like even my preferred mode of medication is a needle. Yeah. I really don't like tablets. Like zikikwama hapa, they just become so bad. So at that time, that may have been the one thing that stopped me from doing such a thing to myself. So yeah, sometimes it's a mixture of the environment you're in, how much mental strength you have, and what you've been exposed to that could dictate whether you are suicidal or potentially murderous. Yeah, that's my point. That's what I'd like to say.
And also I think I'd like to add something on that point. When you want to say, we always laugh at memes, but as you laugh at memes, try to get something from the memes. You want to say, always check up on your friends because you never know what someone might be undergoing. That one high can really save a big thing. Maybe someone was just at the verge of committing suicide, and that one high from Crystal Ben, it lightened up their world. So I think that it should be upon us to check to our friends, especially those you've not talked to them for a long time. It really changes someone. Someone I've not talked to 1 year, I text, I usually get very happy. Hey, today such and such a person has remembered me today. I think it's very encouraging. So always check out on people, on your friends and parents and family members as well. Yes, and just to sum up my points, you'd finish.
I think along those lines, I'd also like to add something about the experience of mental health and suicide and everything. I think the prevalent issue currently that's affecting people's mental health might be cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, just be kind. Actually, you don't know what someone is going through. You really don't. Whatever you're seeing on social media.
And maybe social media is their solace.
And it's their solace. And then you're there pulling someone down. If you're going to be a bully, it says more about you than it says about that person you're bullying. So,
unless that person has pinned you down, but if they haven't, just leave them alone. Yeah, and also something that I'd like to to add on, I think most people nowadays are not open to disappointments. I think we should be ready for anything. Yeah, we should ready. You know, me, I don't expect things from people. I'm just there. Let it go the way it goes. So don't rely on promises. Don't expect from people. Humanity, people change. People can pull out some, and people don't care about others. They care about themselves. They might call you selfish, but always prioritize yourself. And also something that somehow spiritual.
Oh.
Yes, I'm a Christian, yes. Something that's somehow spiritual. As much as we run, like people are tending to run away from religion and spirituality and all those things, God is still there. If you get to a point where you're heavily burdened, turn back to God. No matter ukisimama tu kwa kona yako and you start praying about it, in some way, speaking it out helps. It's therapy on its own. So always pray ukiona umefika in a hard place. Yeah, talk to God. It really helps. Yeah.
Okay, too.
And also listen to your parents. At some time, sometimes things that happen to us, ukianza kuangalia, it's maybe things that parents want us to do, and we went ahead doing it. Na sasa ikiharibika, it lands us into troubles, and maybe we feel we disappointed our parents. And maybe if you could have talked to your mom, maybe at her hand you feel disappointed. She could have understood your point. So talking, it's what I'm insisting on. Yeah.
I have a slightly different opinion on parents. And this one I want to say it as without bias as possible. How many of your friends have told you that they're going through a hard time because of the relationship they have with their parents? Or rather, their parents are forcing things on them? How many? Most of them. And do you think that if they did what their parents wanted, their lives would be better, or it would be more miserable?
To some extent. It depends.
It would be better?
To some extent, it would be, I'd say 50-50. Yeah.
So, parents is a sketchy ground. Because, me, I would say, personally, I've seen a lot of people who have very toxic relationships with their parents. Very toxic. And
I think
it's a generational issue.
Yeah.
Kutoelewana on what is important and what is not. Kutoelewana on what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So,
I think it goes back to where you started. When we were being raised, we weren't given that opportunity to speak out. To speak out to our parents what we were going through. So that's what is affecting us up to now. They think they know it all. Na mtoto haizi niambia kitu. Of which, unaweza pata, you are wiser. In some cases, you can advise your parents something that can really help them. But when I feel, Christobel is still a kid, what can she tell us? They tend to think like living longer is knowing more and being wiser, of which I've seen some old people who think like class 2 children, so it doesn't really count.
Okay, for me, my balance on the parents issue, I do believe my parents are wiser. I do believe that the advice they give me is actually substantial. What the balance I've tried to find, because we've come to a place where hatuelewani on what is the way forward. In such a case, not that you shouldn't seek advice from them or hear out their advice. It is advisable that they see your point of view as well.
Exactly.
And they accommodate your point of view. And then, if at all they think your point of view does not make sense, they should tell you why. Because unajua sisi tunakonga like, ananikataza tu.
Because also we are different generation from theirs. Yeah. So they expect things to work the way they used to work in 1920. And right now we're in 2020. And I heard somewhere, like someone was talking, saying that, if we could stick to the ways, like, like initially, the way our parents used to make money. If we still stick to those ways, then in this generation you're going to make nothing, of which it makes sense. Go and do analysis in the 1990s, how people used to get money, and right now. If you could employ the same strategy they used right now, then you become useless.
It's obsolete.
Yeah.
It's a combination. Even in organizations, they embrace diversity hiring, where you have a manager who's 50 years old, you have another manager who's 25 years old, and both of these people can sit down at the same table and bring different things to the table. It's about embracing, like, whatever you guys, the individual points you have, can they come together to form something better for both of you? I think that's why you strike the balance. And I think we digress. We weren't talking about parents, but we digressed.
Anyway, as she said, we've had friends who've been suicidal. Maybe some of us have been suicidal. So, and these are some of the solutions we think can apply according to us. Yeah, and I'll start by saying, number one, prioritize yourself before anyone else. Yeah, it's God and you and yourself. You know, at the end of the day, the world doesn't care. Utakufa leo, tomorrow you'll be replaced. So
no, ouch much.
Yes,
it's true.
Yeah, I lost a friend last year, and I was just remembering this year. Yeah, I was just remembering this year. Imagine tu amesaudika, and he was a very influential person. So it happens that way. So always put yourself first, and also prioritize your happiness. Your happiness comes first before anything else. And also, the world doesn't care. Let me insist on that. Whether you die or not, we'll still move on with life. And the world will not care. Like maybe Christabel is an orphan, so tumpatie a lot of opportunities. The same way,
the field stays the same, regardless of what you've gone through.
Yes.
On that, I would say she said that prioritize your happiness, and sometimes, like putting yourself first. But I think there's also an importance to having a support system. Because like I said, there are times you find yourself in a really, really deep hole that you cannot pull yourself out of. Sometimes that support system, maybe your religion, your God, it can also be your friends, it can be your family. It doesn't have to be everyone, because sometimes you get betrayed. There are people in my past I've considered to be a support system, and then things change. So not every time that it can be that one person. But like if it's prayer, sometimes what if you can't pray? You know, sometimes you're in over your head and you can't even have that conversation. So it's about always have a support system. In fact, I think set up your support system when you're mentally strong. Because when you're mentally weak, you may not be able to identify what can help you out.
And also you might not identify those people who are real. Someone may just be there to listen to you so that he can go on spreading rumors about you. So I think when you're mentally stable is when you can identify those people who can be there for you during the hard and the good and bad times.
The good and bad.
Yeah. And also some things I used to add on what she said, at least have few people you trust and seek advice from them. That's what you said, right? And also be an open-minded person. Always have a plan B. If this doesn't work, what if? If my boyfriend leaves me today,
why did you have to use that?
Because most people actually love triangles and all that.
But they love triangles are part of the problems that we are having.
Always have an option B for all, even B, C, D, E.
An option B boyfriend.
I'm not saying about boyfriend in life generally.
I'm joking.
Even boyfriends. It's your life anyway. No one cares. Have many options to something. And also, don't expect too much. People will always disappoint.
Or people will always come through. Let's not just be negative.
Yes. Then you are the best version of yourself. So embrace it. Then know your purpose. Work towards it. And it might take you ages to accomplish what you really wanted, but just trust the process. Yes.
I think I'd like to add on something she said about what is that point you said, Saizi, about being open-minded. I think 80% of the frustrations we face as the current generation is because of frustration. You're like, you've tried this thing, it's not working. You've hit a wall. And then, all your entire brain, everything was just there. Haukuwa umeangalia any other options. So being open to, and also you also need to be open to embracing an obstacle. Because stick up, you're never gonna move. And I think it's more frustrating to stay at that position than to even diverge anywhere else.
At least try in a day, make a step.
So, and I think my last point on a solution for the mental status of this generation is be kind. Be kind to people. You never know. As much as we are saying your happiness comes first and
But
everything,
don't pin others down. Don't look down upon others.
just remember to be kind, because you really, really never know what someone is going through at that particular point.
Yeah.
And
also,
I can.
yeah, something I'd like to insist on. As much as we're running away from, maybe you might not be affecting people, think twice, especially before committing suicide. Because these people you leave behind, you leave them stressed than never before. Yeah, think about your mother, someone who carried you for like 9 months. Maybe you haven't had the chance to talk to her about what you've been going through. So always think about the people. Think twice before doing something. Even think about your friends.
I'd like to alert you. At the point when someone is thinking of suicide, ration is out of the window.
Yeah.
They won't start thinking rationally.
Okay, let me say,
logically.
day by day, be thinking about these things, and I don't think you can think of suicide. You can never get to suicide, being suicide. Okay, committing the suicide itself. Maybe you can think about it, but doing it can be quite hard. Yeah, if you think, hey, I have my mom to look up to, I have my friends. Because at the end of the day, we remain behind thinking, hey, what role did I play as a friend?
Yeah, you can mentally
Yes.
scar people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd like to finish the point on being kind to other people. I think I've had situations where I was having a really, really bad day. And, like, me, Velma and I are friends. So sometimes tutachokozana on things. Sometimes we'll be, I'm not saying it was Velma. I think it was another friend of mine in another friend's group. Like, I was having a really, really bad day. I think it's those days you're having a very, very bad day and you start crying at work. And whatever conversation was going on in one of my friends' groups was kind of like attacking. It was attacking me without knowing what I'm going through. So at the end of the day, the best thing you can be to someone who you know or don't know what they're going through is just kind. I think there's this quote that always goes around. You can choose to be anything in this world. You can choose to be anything. But choose to be kind. Because you really never know. And you really never know if your kindness might be the one thing that pulls someone out of a dark place. Yeah, I think I'm finito. I'm finished.
We're done.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us on this conversation. Yeah, we've given our opinion. As with everything we talk about on this channel, it's always our opinion, our experience. So if you feel like there's something we left out, or if there's something we misquoted or misstated, feel free to engage us. Let's make this a conversation. These are conversations we need to be having because society is changing, and we need to be ready for it. So until next time, bye. Boom.